shadow in the government's game. Born as a child with no face and no name. They stole my past to leave me cold and alone. Always searching for a place that could call home. I was lost in the dark, just a tool in the hand, till she pulled me close and helped me understand. Now the fire inside is starting to rise. I can see the truth through 1,000 lies. Now I tear through the veil, leave holes in the sky. I can read every thought in the blink of an eye. Danica, my witch, she's the magic in me. Yeah, I finally found what they took from me. With a hellhound beside me, I'm standing my ground. No longer a ghost that's never been found. In the dead of the night, I can hear the call. All the ghosts of my past scratching through the wall. My eyes change colors, the power has grown. With Crowley the hound, I am never alone. I used to be hollow, a man made of glass, but now I am reclaiming every year that has passed. Every memory is falling right back into place. I know every name and I remember every face. Now I tear through the veil, leave holes in the sky. I can read every thought in the blink of an eye. Danica, my witch, she's the magic in me. Yeah, I finally found what they took from me. With a hellhound beside me, I'm standing my ground. No longer a ghost that's never been found. I ain't running no more, yeah, I'm ready to fight. Gonna settle that debt in the depth of the night. They tried to break me, they tried to erase, but they can't hide the blood from the scars on my face. The veil is thin and the engine is hot. I'm taking back everything that they thought I forgot. Now I tear through the veil, leave holes in the sky. I can read every thought in the blink of an eye. Danica, my witch, she's the magic in me. Yeah, I finally found what they took from me. With a hellhound beside me, I'm standing my ground. No longer a ghost that's never been found. I remember it all now. Every single face, I'm calling for you in the dead of the night.
Hello, everybody. It's me, Henry, here tonight to tell you about the Bar S Ranch. I won't tell you where it was located, but I'll tell you this, it was in the Midwest. And yes, I got a different hat on than I normally wear, just for this occasion. Now, the guy that owned this ranch, he had cattle and horses and sheep, and he supplied a lot of beef out there on the markets. Now, he had several thousands of acres, and he needed extra hands. Well, he hired lots of people, and anybody that come to asking for a job, it didn't make a difference if you had experience or not. He'd find something for you to do. Well, he never could get enough people, so he went and done it legally. He went and down to Mexico and got over 1,000 Mexicans and their families, their men, women, children, young people, old people. He got them all work visas, and he done it the right way. Well, when they first come up there, they was sleeping in campers. Well, the people in the village and surrounding areas they kind of pitched a little bit of a bitch, and he had to go to several meetings, and he said, well, I'll make you a deal. I will put them back down this old stock road I got. I'll put up a gate. The only time you'll ever see them is if you go through that gate back to where they're at. They won't be in your stores. I'll see to that. I'll put up my own stores back there. I will buy in bulk. I will keep my stores supplied for these several thousand Mexicans and the other people that come to work. So you won't have to worry about them. All I ask is, let me be. I'll hire anybody that comes here. White, black, it don't make a difference. So they half-heartedly agreed, and it was decided that he could go through with his plan. So all these people, you go main road in front of the house, and then at the corner you'd make a bend to the right, and then down just a little bit further you could turn to your left. That was the main road. Or you go straight ahead and open the big gate, go across the cattle crossing. You probably went about 2 miles back there. And he cleared out a spot, nice and grassy, and had trees, and he had those campers. He had a well back there, and finally one day, now this started in the 60s. He got talking to him, and he said, you know, you guys ain't got no electricity in those campers or anything, and I want to do things right. He goes, I got a bunch of lumber that's going to be delivered. Do we have any carpenters here, or do I need to hire some? Well, several of them spoke up, and he said, now what I'd like to have is, and he pulled out a photo. This man was rich. He'd been all over the desert Southwest and took lots of pictures. He said, I'd like to have it set up like an old ghost town, like in these photos. One main street, buildings on both sides. And he said, the storefronts, those could be housing for, like, somebody that's got 7 or 8 people in their family, you know, wife, and all these kids. But he said, kind of like to keep it sort of like this. They asked if they could keep the picture to look at, and they started laying the groundwork. Now these buildings, he had concrete slabs poured back there, and they was going to start building off of those, and they marked out the main street with what when you go back there, and they just built on each side of the road. Well, these guys was so smart, these carpenters that were also cattlemen. They made saloons. They made stores, little wooden stores like you see back in the 1800s. Even had a boardwalk on each side of the road. That way on rainy days and snowy days, the women could stay on the porches and not get their feet all muddy. They even had delivery stables back there. The whole street was probably about 1 mile long, maybe give or take. They even put up horse ties in front of each one of these buildings. They had benches. Well, as time went by, they got these buildings done. So these buildings had electricity in them. So the owner of the ranch made a few phone calls and spread some wealth around, and all of a sudden these big giant trailer trucks started pouring into this village and heading back to his farm. One by one, they was pulling a convoy, a whole load of them. There was all kinds of stuff on there. There was fruits and vegetables, and some of those trucks had goods like clothes, saddles, ropes. They even had a beer truck come in there. Believe it or not, a beer truck. Well, these Hispanic people, they jumped in because they workers. They jumped in and helped with the unloading and putting stuff away, and one by one, as the trailer trucks unload, they go down and make the loop, come back through, and head out for another load. It was a sight to behold. They even had arenas, horse pen, cattle pen, where they could bring the horses in and do what they need to put them in there and in the corrals, and they had corrals for the cows so they could get in there, and them Mexicans like to have fun. But he made a deal with them. He goes, now, just because we got a saloon and poker house, those will only be open after work on Friday, Saturday, and that's it. Rest time, the alcohol will be locked up. Every night, you're allowed one bottle. That's it. You don't show up to work the next day, no bottle. Well, they all agreed they're good workers. So they said you take your earnings and pay half price for anything on the shelf. If you was to go to a regular store, you pay full price. So I know what you're thinking. You're probably thinking, well, that goddamn asshole. There is a reason for this, and you'll find that out later on. But they was happy. They didn't have to leave their little slice of the world and be ridiculed, because times was different back in those days. They never wanted for nothing. They even had ice cream places there. Little ice cream bar that you go up to and walk in and sit there at the little bar and have your ice cream, your malt, even a cold soda. Well, they was happy as larks. They didn't have to worry about being ridiculed, picked on, told to get out. Everything went as planned, it real smooth. For years, this place operated. When come time for the cowboys to go out and round up the cows, they'd run them through that town into those corrals after they separated the culls from the sellers. Everybody made money, including those Hispanic people. They worshipped this guy. I mean, they'd never been treated so good. They stayed there year-round. Periodically, one would fly back to see family and take care of business in Mexico. But for the most part, they was there all the time. I remember one time, as a little kid, going with my grandpa back there, and one of my uncles had a job there. That's my mom's second youngest brother. And we went back there to deliver a message, and those people were just as friendly. And, well, my grandpa, I'll be damned, there's a saloon. He walked up there and looked through the batwing doors. It looked like one of the old westerns. Had them round tables with wooden chairs so people could sit there and play cards while they drinking. They even had a little opera house where some of those women would kick up their heels while some of them guys played their guitars. Their band be playing and they'd be singing and dancing and having a hell of a time. Over the years, I'd periodically go back there with my uncle. They're real nice people. Got to know a lot of them real well, and their families. And let me tell you something. Those folks, when they put on a fiesta, it was a fiesta. They'd be dancing in the streets back there, the one street they had, dancing in the street out there, have a street dance. Had all the lights on and just having them a hell of a time. Well, everything went good for several years. The old man that owned the ranch started getting a little older, and you know how it goes when you pass something down to kids. They don't appreciate it. They have bigger plans. Well, this guy's kids was the same way, and as long as Papa was alive, Papa would steal the ramrod, even from the bed. But the day that man drawed his last breath, the ball of twine come unwound and it went everywhere. Slowly but surely, they started selling off cattle. Then they started selling off land, because they didn't know how to manage it like old Papa did. So, eventually, the Mexicans left one by one, but anyway, right before that old man died, all the money that them Mexicans had spent in his stores and his saloons back there that they built for him and for themselves, they even turned some of those into homes. Each one of them, one by one, come up to the house, and the old man was sitting on the porch. One by one, they single file come up the stairs onto the covered porch. He shook their hand, gave them a big old hug, and gave them an envelope. Each one of them got money that they had spent, their own money that he paid them, in those stores and them saloons back there. They even had a church and a school. School for the little ones and some of the older ones. And each one of them got a big fat check. So see, basically he was using it like a bank. Yeah, he took their money, but he saved it because he had an idea that he was going to give them back their money that they had spent to show his appreciation. They was loyal. You didn't hear of no stealing back there. Oh, once in a while, one or two of them might get in and get into it, and no knife play, no gun play. They'd go to one of the corrals, and there wasn't no other way to settle it. They were going to settle it like men. They'd go back there and take their shirts off, and they'd have a bare-knuckle fist fight until one of them either give up or one of them knocked silly or knocked out. Sometimes it'd be a hell of a fight going. But by doing that, you kept them from pulling guns on each other, knives, branding irons, you name it. Hell, sometimes there'd be a big-ass fight in that corral, two guys. Sometimes there'd be two women, too. Oh, yeah. As soon as they get done, the The boss, he'd pull the cooler out, and well, hell, there'd be several coolers sitting there, and everybody got 'em a bottle or a can of beer, and they'd sit around and laugh about the lumps they just took from each other. So it all worked out. See, after the fight was over with, they'd be drinking a little bit there and just laugh, and they was buddies again. But sometimes when things get too out of hand, it went to fist fight. And it was controlled. It was in the corral. And after it was over with, they'd all friends again. Well, they'd even sit around sometimes and laugh about it's kind of stupid what we was fighting about. How was it? A 2-cent argument for a $5 fight. Well, the boss, he'd take 'em in and patch 'em up, him and his wife. They'd all have a good laugh about it, and next day they'd right back to working. Now, I'll tell you something about these vaqueros. Them are the true horsemen. That's where I learned my horsemanship from. They did it all. They worked cattle, sheep, horses. If one of their saddle straps broke or needed mending, they didn't take it to a leathersmith because there wasn't one back there. They'd do it themselves. And let me tell you something. Those horses were treated like gods, contrary to what people may believe, because you treat your horse good, you get lots of good work out of him, and he'd be loyal. I even seen one time back there, I'd never believed it, but I seen it with my own eyes. They was out there moving cattle from one pasture to the other on horseback. Well, this one that was up there to open the gate, he got off his horse and he forgot to tie it, and the horse headed back to see what the other horses and cattle was doing. He was standing there, and all of a sudden here come those cattle in a dead run, and that horse was running beside him. I didn't know what the hell he did it for, but he laid down. That freaking horse come to where he was at, jumped over him, run a few more feet, turn and come back. When it was over with, asked the man, I said, "Why'd you lay down?" He said, "A good horse won't never step on you. He'll jump over you." And he said, "I knew he was going to come on through there. He wasn't going to stop, because he was..." Sometimes them horses, they keep right on with their job. That's the way they were trained. He got hold of his horse, dusted himself off, and we sitting there laughing. Because I thought the horse just run off and left him there. And he goes, no. Those cattle was coming, and he did what he was supposed to do. You notice after he was done, he come right over here. Yeah. I learned a valuable lesson that day. May not seem like much to anybody else, but to me it was a valuable lesson. So years passed, like I said, the kids took over the farm, and slowly but surely they started losing stuff, and one by one the Mexicans moved on. They couldn't stand to sit there and watch their unincorporated little town be stripped. They couldn't bear the sight. They figured it was better to take one last look and leave with that memory that they would hang on to and cherish for years. And they'd go back and find other jobs. He had a big lump sum of money to go with him. Well, for years I can remember off and on, I'd go back there with my uncle that worked there. Him and another guy was the only two left that they kept to take care of cattle, a few cattle they had, and then they started bringing pigs in and more sheep. So they kept these two guys, and I'd go back there periodically, and it reminds you of an old time village, a town, old ghost town. And I remember many times walking up there. They even had names painted on the windows, like Gregory Saloon, Dry Gulch Bath. Every one of these places, even the store had a name. I'd go up there and peer through the windows and remember it the way it was. Well, years had passed and everything started getting weathered over, and ranch went to one hand into another, kind of like water through your fingers. Well, in mid to late 70s, another uncle of mine called. I never much cared for the son of a bitch, but he was still my dad's brother, even though he's a fucking asshole. Always called him one of the Screw Brothers. He'd screw his mom out of her own eye teeth. That's how treacherous this bastard was. He was worse than any damn horse thief ever thought about being. But he called one day and asked me if I still had that ugly-ass, tall Appaloosa. I said, I don't appreciate you calling my horse ugly. And I can damn sure tell you this, he ain't gonna appreciate it either. So what do you want? I'll pay you good money, half up front, and half when the job's done. I said, well, what the fuck do you want? He said, I lost some of my cattle, and he said, I think they went over by the Double Bar S Ranch. You think you could go locate and see if you locate some tracks and see where they went? They've taken those cattle crosses out, so you can't drive back there no more, because people got driving back there and fucking around. I see. I told him how much money it would take for me to load my horse and my saddle and blanket and whatnot. I wondered why he didn't go look. Because he was fucking lazy, that's what it was. He wasn't going to walk, and there wasn't no way you could drive through those fields of corn and all that. So he hit me up. Any other time he wouldn't piss on my back if I was on fire. But the old saying goes, money talks, bullshit walks. For a price, I'd do it. Besides, it got me and the horse out anyway. So I headed up there and got up there in the early afternoon. It was probably about 2:30, 3 o'clock in the afternoon. I said, do you have any idea of which way they went? He said, well, come on, I'll show you. We walked back to the lots and showed me the down fence. Seen a bunch of tracks going out. Made like a path down through there. And, well, yep, you're right. Headed over toward the Bar S Ranch. I know that place pretty well. I said, what's the real reason, besides you being a lazy scoundrel, that you and your boys didn't go look for them yourself? Oh, no reason. I found out later he'd lying some bitch. It was kind of warm that afternoon, and I told him, I said, well, I'm going to take the horse, put him in this one lot you have so he can just kind of hang around till it cools off, and then I'll saddle him up and I'll go start looking. He goes, well, I'm hoping you don't come back without him. I said, I told you what it would cost. He said, and I agreed. I said, I won't be back until I find them. I will find them. It may take me all night, but I will find them. So I put the horse in the lot there and give him a little hay and a little grain. Made sure the water tank was filled up. I was going to wait for it to cool off because them damn horse flies was bad. So I figured we'd do it about 4:30, 5 o'clock, take off, me and the horse. Uncle said, you need a gun? No. I got my own guns that I'll put on and put in the saddle holster. That's in case you come across anything that might decide to do bodily harm, like a coyote, big cat, never know. And some of them other creatures that we always talk about. Of course, I wasn't going to say that in front of him, but that was always in the back of my mind. So I dilly-dallied around and hung around out there in the shade, chewing on a piece of grass, just thinking about what I was going to have to do. Wonder how long I was going to be out there. So that evening, his wife brought me out a plate. Now that's how fucking ornery these people was. I wasn't good enough to eat in the house, even though I was going to be doing a job for them. They brought me a plate out there to the fucking yard. I was hungry, so I ate it. It was good. But just the idea. I was relation. It's good enough for them to call for me to come up there and do a job. But I wasn't good enough to invite in the house to eat. So I ate outside like a fucking yard dog. That's fine. Didn't really particularly like their company anyway. So, I got done eating. They come and got the plate and the glass. I headed for the cribby outside and done my business. Walked out there to the lot and whistled real loud, and here come my old horse Poco. Yeah, I called him Poco. He was a tall Appaloosa. He had a kind of a blondish white mane and tail, and the tail was a bobtail, natural bobtail. He was all different colors. Ranged anywhere from blacks to blues and kind of maroons in his coat. I always thought he was a beautiful horse. He was different. But that son of a bitch was loyal. I'd have took him over any people. He's long gone now, but that horse was dear to me. Anyway, I put the blanket on him and put the saddle on him. He just stood there and tightened up the girt. Put his bridle on him and went and got the gun sleeve, the leather gun sleeve out of the truck. Hooked that on the saddle and slid the old 45 down there and latched her down so she wouldn't bounce out. Went and got my guns, strapped them on. I made sure I strapped them summits on so they wouldn't fall off. Then I got my bedroll, had a few things in there, and saddlebags, and got them all loaded on the saddle. And I said my goodbyes and headed down the road toward the Bar S. Well, I got there just out of my uncle's yard, and I didn't want to tear up his yard. I took the driveway out to the main road, and as soon as we got past the edge of the yard, I jumped him across the ditch. We rode that fence line down so I could see if I could pick up any tracks. Sure enough, they was headed across that cornfield. I wasn't going to go through that cornfield, so I come back up to the road, jumped me across the ditch onto the road, and we rode on up the road there. Come up there where you could turn to go back in that old road where the old unincorporated town was. Well, I didn't turn there. I rode on up to the main house and walked the horse up there and dropped the reins. Got off, walked up, knocked on the door, and this lady answered the door, older lady. I told her the situation. She goes, I don't like that sumbitch uncle of yours. I said, well, you're a good woman then. He is a piece of monkey shit. I don't like sumbitch either. But he knows you wouldn't allow him on your property. Would you mind if I go back there and look? 'Cause that's where the cattle headed to. She goes, that sumbitch better not be on my property nowhere. I said, ma'am, if he's on your property, I will deliver that sumbitch's scrawny ass right to you. And you can prosecute that son of a bitch. She goes, I like your way of thinking. I said, well, I don't like that son of a bitch. He screwed me over more times than you could shake a stick at. I said, the son of a bitch made me even go outside and eat. So I said, there ain't no love lost between us. But I'm paid to do a job. She goes, did he pay you up front? I said, half of it. He's supposed to pay me the other half when I bring the cattle back. She goes, if he don't, you come up here and tell me. And she said, I'll put a feed bill on his ass for them damn cattle. Done. Good deal. I'll keep that in mind. She goes, you go back there and ride anywhere you want to find those cattle. I said, well, ma'am, he won't come nowhere on your property. I'll drive the cattle down to his place. Good deal. So sun's setting and pole lights coming on. So I tipped my hat to her. Told her thank you for letting me go get those cattle. Let me go look for them. I told her if I have any problems, I'll come back. So I shook her hand and headed toward the horse. Old Poco out there, he's standing out there just like he was listening to the conversation. I don't think he liked my uncle either. He probably knew he was a piece of shit. So I took the rein, throwed it up on the saddle horn, grabbed the other rein, tossed it up. I raised my leg as high as I could get it, because there wasn't no fence or nothing to climb on. I had a hell of a time, but I finally got my foot up there in that stirrup, and I pulled my ass up there and grabbed the reins, and we headed out. Went down the driveway, and I never had no premonition about what was going to happen. So far, it was smooth sailing. I had no clue what that was going to change as soon as it got dark. Well, we took the main road and turned to the right. Went down and come to that big padlock gate. I opened the padlock gate up, walked Poco through the gate there and shut the gate, latched it. And I seen that big tear out in the ground there. That's where that old cattle crossing was. Well, I could have made him jump it, but I decided not to. It's better off just to go around it. It being gravel and nighttime, could take a chance on him getting hurt or both of us getting hurt. I wasn't going to have that. We was riding along, and like I said, it was pitch black. There was a cornfield on each side. It was as black as black could be, but I could see the road for the white gravel. Well, I noticed Poco always kept his head in like a bowed, upright position. I guess because he was proud. Maybe he thought he was pretty. I thought he was. A lot of people said he was one ugly son of a bitch. But then again, look at me. We got along just fine. But he'd walk along and them old ears, they was up like antennas. He'd look to the right, toward the cornfield, and kept walking. And he'd turn, his head to the left, them ears up and pointed forward. He was just listening. I don't know what he was picking up on, but maybe he was just scanning, checking for hidden dangers, I guess. Well, the more we walked, the more he would look side to side and looking and listening. Them ears, they'd turn, and he'd turn his head. So, we got back, we had to make the turn to your left, and then you could see where the old town, it was still there, just run down, withered, but it was still there. By then, the moon kind of started peeking out behind the clouds. The clouds were starting to clear out a little bit. Big old full moon. And you could see pretty good. I did have a flashlight, but I wanted to save the batteries in case I needed it. I didn't want to burn it out. So, I was going to have to ride through where this town was. And it didn't bother me because I've been back there several times when it was an operating ranch. For some reason that night, as soon as I come to where the building started, I started doing like Poco. I'd look this way and I'd look that way, and that's weird as hell, something. Maybe just because there's old buildings and the people wasn't there anymore. Maybe that's what started in making my antenna stand up like the horse. Oh, I noticed Poco, normally he would prance when he walked. He was doing it real slow that night. Sometimes he'd even dog leg. Dog leg is where the horse or a dog turns kind of sideways and goes. Sometimes he'd do that too. But he was doing it, real slow. And he was watching like I was, because you could just feel the creepy vibrations. And I didn't figure there should be no creepy vibrations, because it was a familiar place. But as you know, at nighttime, things do change. What looks peaceful during the day, at nighttime, can just change just like that. Go from being nice and peaceful to being scary as hell. But he's walking through that house, through that town there, that little old ghost town, and them old feet of his is just a prancing, he's just a getting it. It was like sitting in one of them bouncy chairs. That's how smooth he was. A lot of people say, well, my God, that'd break your back. Nah. He had a nice smooth gait. And let me tell you something, that son of a bitch could run like the wind. But we're going along, and the further we go, the creepier it gets. We're about halfway through that little ghost town. I seen something move. I pulled back on the reins and noticed the horse was done staring in that direction. I started looking. I just caught it at the corner of my eye. I waited for a few minutes, kept watching. Couldn't see it no more. So probably just my eyes playing tricks on me. So I let up on the reins a little bit, and that meant for the horse to go, so he picked up, started prancing again. All of a sudden, I caught a glimpse of something on the other side of the road, by one of the buildings. I stopped, looked, couldn't find it. Okay. So, we picked up the pace and got to the end of the little village there, and that's where the cornfield started to kind of go around that little town. So I got off the horse and dropped the reins, and he was sitting there eating grass. I got my flashlight out, and I was going to walk along that cornfield and see if I see any tracks. Well, of course, the horse, he's going to stay there and eat where I drop them reins, because that's the way he was trained. So I grabbed my long gun out, laid it across my shoulder, and proceeded to look for tracks along the edge of them fields. I walked up to behind the old incorporated town, and every so often I'd see just a track from one cow. But the further I went, I started seeing where the other was coming out too. I caught a glimpse of something running on the other side of the building in the main road that we'd just come through. And it run from one side of the road, out of one building, across the road toward another building, catty corner. By the time I got my eyes all the way around, it was done going in between these buildings. What the shit was that? So I didn't panic, but it did catch my attention. So I made my way back to the horse and throwed the reins up again, got back aboard that horse, and started trying to go back into that old ghost town. As I was heading and just started in there to the first building on one side and on the other side, I started noticing a bunch of these look like black shadow people. What the hell? So I pull back on the reins and get off the horse. He's looking too. What the shit? So I dropped the reins and he just watched. I walked up to the first old building and gonna look through the window where the moon was hitting it so he couldn't see. So I put my hands up to the window like this and look in there. I'll be a son of a bitch. You talking about scared the hell out of me. Just as I did this to that window and trying to wipe the dust and look, I seen a lady in a long dress. The more I looked inside that building, the more people I started seeing. Like, oh shit. So I thought, well, maybe it's real people, because they looked real. So I waved. They was kind of trying to see what was going on out there in the street. That's weird as shit. So I backed away from the window and got back out in the street. They come to the front of that window, but they was on the inside and I was on the outside. I took my eye off of that window and started looking, and there were people all over the damn place. Now I'm kind of screwed because I have to keep going forward, because you go the other way and it's a dead end into a cornfield. I thought, well, I boarded a horse, and he was just a staring. You could tell that he was concerned. But me and him been around each other long enough that he trusted me and I trust him. He started that prancing again, going dog-legging sideways. And I knew that if something or somebody got too close, that horse was also trained that he would kick the shit out of them. So he's prancing through there and I'm a-watching, and I got the gun laid across the saddle. A lot of good that would done me if they was all spirits, which that's what they were. Wouldn't done no good to shoot them. Well, it wouldn't done nothing. All it did was make me feel better. So, he's trotting through there, prancing, and all this going on. Then the sound started in. I stopped that horse dead still. It started at one end of town, the town there, and the lights started lighting up in all these buildings on both sides of the road. And it was like a crackling sound in the air. Then you heard the sound of the old guitars playing and people dancing. Damnedest thing I ever seen. There was more ghosts in this little ghost town. That was a good one, wasn't it? Ghost town. Than I'd ever seen in any place. The sad thing was, they was people that I had seen and come to know there. They was carrying on just like it was a Friday night. And it was BS that time. Dancing, drinking, laughing, having a good time. Now I'm sitting there watching all this, and I lose myself in it because I'd been around a lot of them. Well, I don't know, but I decided that I wanted to see if I could interact with them more. So I got off the horse and walked over to the side and tied him up to one of the hitching posts that was still there. I walked into the saloon, and they all stopped what they were doing and took a look. Even the people up on the balcony. So I just kind of looked, and they looked solid just like anybody else. So I guess that's why it didn't scare me as bad. So I walked up, ordered me a soda. Barkeep popped the cap off of her because one of them old twist cap sodas, them old great knee highs. I liked them things. I stood at the bar a little bit, and one of the bar stools come empty, so I made myself at home on top of that bar stool and turned around watching the card games being played and the piano player and some of the cowboys out there dancing with some of the saloon girls. Yeah, they had saloon girls too back in those days. They was just a kicking up, having them a good time. I noticed one old cowboy kept going to those bat-wing doors looking at there at my horse tied up. I thought, well, I better get the shit out of here, because he's probably thinking about either making a deal for my horse or he's going to steal the son of a bitch. So I decided I better get my knee high and get out there, and we best just mosey on out of here. So I walked past him and said, excuse me. He stepped to the side, went through the bat-wing doors, walked across the little boardwalk there and to the horse tying hitch and untied him, slung the reins up toward the saddle horn. He just stood there, got my foot up there in the stirrup, and got aboard and proceeded to gently plow rein him to the side. All of a sudden, the lights, the music, just like that was gone. Now I'm back in just the moonlight. That's fucking weird. So, the rest of the way through that old ghost town, it was quiet. It was like somebody just, poof, turned everything off. Now I'm kind of startled. I'm like, what the hell? So I went to the end of town, made the right-hand turn to go up the road. Them goddamn cattle had somehow circled through that field and was standing on that straight road heading out toward the gate. Like, well, you dirty bastard. So I start working the cows, running them up, and got up there about the gate to go on the main road, and I dropped the rein, climbed off, walked out around the cattle, went and opened the gate, opened her wide, and walked them cattle through there, and went back and locked the gate. Then we had to work the cattle down the road back to that dumbass uncle's of mine. Well, the cattle had one idea and I had another. My idea was they were supposed to go toward my uncle's. Their idea, they was going to stop and eat a little grass. We got them convinced, and they decided it was better if they head home. They was walking, scattered out all the way across the road. It'd been a hell of a sight. A car come flying down the road, but luckily it didn't. And I'm weaving back and forth, keep them cattle, them hard-headed bastards, on the road. All the way back, every so often, I'd whistle and holler, try to speed them up a little bit, because they were sauntering along. Every time we passed the house, dogs would come out and bark. Of course, the cattle would turn and look. Every so often, the dog got kicked by some cattle. But we got them back to the house, and I was shining my light on his house as I was coming up the driveway, and he put his shoes on, and him and his boys went out there and opened the gates and stood back a little bit, and me and Poco run them horses in that lot. They shut the gate and latched it, and I pulled back on the reins, got off. I said, you ain't gonna believe what happened. He goes, well, come on up here on the porch, and while you're telling me, I'll pay you. I said, okay. So I started telling him about what I'd seen back there at the Bar S. He started laughing. He goes, now you know why I didn't go back there. Well, that might have been part of the reason, but the other part was that old lady at the house up there, She does not like you. He goes, what old lady you talking about? I said, there was an old lady out there that come to the door. She hates you with a passion. I told her she's a good woman. I said, because you are a crooked son of a bitch. He gave me money and started laughing. He goes, but at least you went and got the cattle. He said, I wouldn't go back there for nothing. That place is haunted. That's no shit. I said, I figured this much, you chicken shit. Ain't good enough to come in your house and eat, but you'd use me to go find your damn cattle. That's why I charged you what I did. It was pretty easy money, but the idea that somebody didn't tell me that he knew that place was haunted, but I figured he was chicken shit of the dark anyway. That somebody couldn't whip his way out of a wet paper bag. So that was my story about the Bar-ass Ranch. People still today, every so often, when they're working the fields at night back there, they see the same thing I do. They see them ghosts out there at nighttime in that little unincorporated town, carrying on with dancing and drinking and having a good time. Lights come on and music, and every so often them spirits will wave at one of the farmers out there picking corn, picking beans. They don't hurt nobody, but it just kind of startles you when you don't see them, and all of a sudden, poof, can scare the shit out of you. But anyway, that's the story about the Bar-ass Ranch, and I hope y'all enjoyed it. And I'll be getting back hold of you again, and we'll go through another one. These are all true. And I don't know who owns the Bar-ass now, but if I did, I could take you there and drop you off and watch you get scared. It wasn't scared because of what they were doing, just because of all of a sudden boom, the town just comes alive. Like so many of these ghost towns out there in New Mexico and Texas, Nevada, Utah, all them places out there in the Southwest. And I know a little bit about all those places. But this is a story I just wanted to, true story, I wanted to tell you all about in case you don't know. If it brought some entertainment to you or learned something, how about just giving me a thumbs up? Maybe leave me a comment. And if you're not subscribed, how about maybe subscribing? I'd appreciate that. Until the next time, this is Henry saying sayonara. Y'all have a good night.